Yep. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Windsor Forum on Tuesday, the 23rd of July. My name is Councillor Mark Wilson and I'll be chairing this meeting. The meeting is being held in person and via Zoom and streamed live to the public on YouTube. I remind all attendees that participation in the meeting indicates consent to the audio and video being streamed live and acknowledgement that after the meeting it will continue to be available in the public domain. Firstly, it would be useful if all panel members and officers could introduce themselves so the public are aware of who is in the meeting and the role they're undertaking. To say I'm Councillor Mark Wilson, Chair of the Forum.
Thank you. Councillor Amy Teasey, Lead Member for Windsor, Member for Clewer East and Vice Chair.
Hello, my name is PCSO Katie Knight and I am a PCSO for Dedworth.
My name is PC Samuel Fox. I am the Neighbourhood Supervisor at Windsor.
Good evening, my name is Kim Woodley. I'm a Democratic Services Officer here shadowing my colleague Lawrence Ellis tonight.
Lawrence Ellis, Democratic Services and Clerk to the Windsor Forum.
Councillor Neil Knowles, Ward Councillor for Old Windsor, which also covers the Boltons.
Councillor Alison Carpenter, Member for Clewer and Dedworth East.
Thank you. So I request that meeting participants do not speak unless I specifically invite them to do so. Once I've invited you to speak, before you do so, please state your name and the capacity in which you're speaking if appropriate. I will also ask officers to speak at appropriate times. If any individual attempts to disrupt the meeting, I'm able to use my powers in the Constitution to adjourn the meeting or have the individual removed. So just before I start on the agenda, I would like to offer my thanks to Councillor Carpenter for her work on the Windsor Forum, chairing it over the past 14 months and moving it forward as a very relevant and informative meeting for Windsor residents. So thank you, and I hope to continue the progress today and in future. So moving to the agenda, are there any apologies for absence?
No apologies, Chair.
Thank you. And are there any declarations of interest from forum members? Thank you. So on to the minutes of last time's meeting. So we had, there were a couple of actions. In terms of the first one regarding the overall costs for the emergency response, I know Chris Joyce is online. I just wonder if I can invite Chris to talk briefly to that point.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So Chris Joyce, I am the Assistant Director for Placemaking, Partnerships and Sustainability at the Royal Borough. So within my service includes both the flooding team, but also the responsibility for the Joint Emergency Planning Unit. So I believe the action at the last meeting was just to set out effectively the costs to the council of responding to the incident. So we've got a breakdown of those costs. So I won't give all of the detail, but the costs of the incident was around 65,000. That included staff costs, including effectively overtime payments that were made to staff, the cost of booking various hotel rooms to put people up, and work from our contractors in terms of setting up of the Cookham Causeway plan, including the temporary lights and the staffing of that. So the various costs across the board, that's 65,000. That has to come out of the council's budget unless we reach the threshold for government funding. Obviously, there were a series also of supportive grants to both businesses and residents that were claimed directly from government as well, directly through those schemes. So there were additional costs, I suppose, in relation to those, but those were paid by government.
Great, thanks very much, Chris. And then the other action we had on from last time was regarding the rats and who was responsible for pest control on council-owned land. The officer who presented left immediately afterwards, and there's been a little bit of a challenge to follow this up. So we are going to confirm details at the next meeting. However, what I can say is that the initial sort of suggestion is that basically whoever is responsible for the site is responsible for the rats. So we just want to get that confirmed department by department. So, for example, parks, we'll be looking after parks. If it's in a car park, it will be parking, etc. But we'll just confirm that in detail, because that would obviously spread it across different departments. So otherwise, are there any other comments on the minutes as presented?
If I may, rats and rat infestations are a public health issue and not down to private individuals. So that's the answer they're giving is a little bit blasé. Windsor Castle has now got them to the degree that the soldiers can't sleep in the guardroom at night. It's almost like a plague of rats.
Yeah.
And it transcends borders of property. And I think really you ought to go back to them and say, look, that's really not good enough. We need something a bit more concrete.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. This is absolutely a very serious issue, and it's clearly very prevalent in the town centre, especially. The clarity from last time's meeting was exactly who, where, which, as I say, we'll come back to the next meeting with the precise details. Thank you. Any other comments on the minutes? Okay, so I will sign those and sign those off. So moving to agenda item 4 and the Thames Valley Police update.
Hello everyone, my name's Sam. I'm the new neighbourhood supervisor at Windsor. Forgive me if I get some things wrong. This is my first forum meeting. I've made some PowerPoints. I didn't think there was going to be this many people, so I've only probably got everyone from maybe 1 between 2, just to make it a little bit. While they're being passed around, I've been asked to discuss some of these statistics for Windsor, which I will go through in the PowerPoint, mainly around shoplifting in the town centre, wildlife crime, and if we've got any sort of successful arrests, and if we've made any progress on any of the issues. I'll start by saying.
Sorry, just 1 second. Just wondering if it's possible to efficiently put that, get that sent to Lawrence and have it displayed on the screen.
If it's possible, yeah, of course.
Is that, we just take a moment to do that, because that would be a bit easier as well for people online. Sorry, bear with us. Yes, and we can also circulate it with the minutes later on.
Should be coming your way any minute now. Yeah. This one.
So, yeah.
Oh, wait. So why?
But does anyone have a password for the register? Guess why? Apologies, do bear with us. This is worth taking a couple of minutes, I think, to try and get this projected, because it'll be it's quite a useful update, so I want to make sure everyone can see it here and online. Should come through.
They had a question. The appendix. They're still whittling down the trialists. They're getting talk through people again.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you for your patience, everyone. And just hand over to the TVP. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello again. Sorry, my name is Sam. I told you something was going to go wrong. I'm here today with my colleague Katie from Windsor Police Station. We work specifically in the neighbourhood department, so we are slightly separate to normal police officers, where they attend sort of 999 calls and immediates, where we work shifts. We engage with communities At this time, we're the Windsor West area, so we work in Clewer, Dedworth, that sort of side of Windsor, going up towards Bray. I've just started 4 months ago, so I'm getting to know the process, getting to know the community, and getting to know all of the councillors. See where we can go from there. So if we could go on to the next one. The agenda for this short presentation is going to talk about what priorities we have in Windsor. I'm going to discuss central, east and west, so the whole of Windsor. Shoplifting is a priority at the moment in the central area. Wildlife crime is quite prevalent in east. That includes Datchet and Horton. Theft from motor vehicles, there's been a spike recently in Windsor, especially Dedworth. And we've got some graffiti problems as well that I'd like to discuss. Yeah, so these are 3 areas. Me and Keith work in West, and we've got a number of different officers and PCSOs who work with Central and East. So we're split up into 3 departments, and we focus on each priority separately. So I will discuss each one briefly, but I won't hang on too long because there's some more important issues that I want to raise. So one of the central priorities, 3 of them: speeding, cycling in pedestrian zones, and antisocial behaviour. So the next one will be speeding. We had a meeting with the local residents of King Road on the 5th of April. I think a crossing was requested, but I'm waiting to hear of anything so far of that one. Regarding the cycling, I know there's a big problem, especially in Pescud Street, in a busy sort of central area on the high street. People come whizzing down there all the time. So we do quite often complete our own small operations where we have PCSOs and PTs based within that area, purely to stop people cycling, give them some educational advice, and if necessary, we do hand out penalty notices as well. And antisocial behaviour is probably our most common one, which you'll probably see in all 3 areas. TV alerts, which I'll discuss towards the end of this, is a great app that we use to engage with the community and to tell everyone what we're doing about antisocial behaviour. West, we've got drug dealing, speeding and burglaries. And recently, theft from motor vehicles and theft of bikes have become quite an issue. So they will also be added to the hotspot patrols. With the drug dealing, we are aware that there is quite a bit of drug dealing going on in West's area. We work with ABRI on quite a good basis, actually, especially the antisocial behaviour team who complete joint visits to some of the addresses. So we can go in with them, find out who is dealing, who's using drugs, and take positive action on them. PCSO Colville, who's not here with us today, she completed a session with the mini police on the 7th of June, which was really good, to talk about speeding within Dedworth. And then burglaries, we've got our generic patrols that we do at night time, because we do work sort of nighttime hours as well. We engage with a lot of the neighbourhoods within Dedworth, who often targets, and PCSO Night has completed some talks at Riverside Willows to talk to residents about burglaries, car thefts and home security in order to help prevent it and reduce it. And then lastly, East, we've also got burglary, drug dealing and antisocial behaviour, so you can see a common theme. I have been told that the burglaries within Datchet have reduced recently, and we think it's a result of our robust actions that we take and nighttime patrols to make sure people can see us driving around at nighttime. The Green in Raisbury, if anyone's aware of it, there's been a decline in drug use, again, due to our proactive patrols that we've been doing. We also engage with quite a lot of the youth communities down there as well, talk to them, educate them about drug use as well, rather than just give them a fine. And then lastly, antisocial behaviour. PCSO Bradfield, he's really proactive with his engagement with the community. He often attends a lot of the schools as well to speak to the students and the parents to give them educational advice, see if we can reduce that and deter it. So one of the priorities that we look at a lot today is shoplifting. In the shoplifting mainly will occur on Pesgore Street and within the arches nearby to both the train stations in Windsor Central. As you can see, in the last 3 months, there's been 150 reports of shoplifting. This doesn't mean that every single report that they've made, there has been a confirmed shoplift. It might be someone's attempted to take items from the store. It might be someone's taken something and brought it back. Or it could just be a generic shoplifting where we have taken robust action, identified an offender and arrested them. So as you can see, 150 in 3 months is quite a high number for us. So this is one of our priorities, especially within the central area. One of the things we do, and we are doing now on a regular basis, is completing our covert operations and overt operations within town. So that means we will get a large group of those, which includes officers and PCSOs, both in marked cars and uniformed, and some in non-uniformed roles. What we are doing is the non-uniformed officers will patrol the shops, engage with the shops, let them know that we're out and about for the whole day, hoping that the shops will engage with us and let us know if there is a shoplifter, and then we can, if one is committed, then we're nearby and we can take robust action quite quickly. We are aware there are some individuals who shoplift more than others and become more a priority. So we are hoping that if we do this on a regular basis, we can reduce the amount of shopliftings and improve the relationship with the shops in Windsor. One of the key issues is a lot of the shopliftings aren't actually reported to us, hence we can't take as much action because we don't know about it. We have a new department called the Assessment and Investigation Unit. They are TVP based, and what they are is they're sort of a buffer between the reporting person and the responding officer. So, for example, if shoplifting happens in Waitrose will hopefully call us, make the report, and then it will go through the Assessment and Investigation Unit. The benefit of this unit is they have more time and resources to obtain CCTV, obtain statements, and identify an offender. Once the offender is identified, it comes to us, and then we can complete our arrests. So it does work quite well. The only downside is, again, the shops. Some of them are really good. Some of them tend not to respond to this unit. So therefore, we do lose a lot of evidence because CCTV often only lasts for a month. But that is a very positive aspect that we've introduced within TVP. The next one is wildlife crime. It's not as big as, well, it is in a good way. It's not as big as we hope. I think on the next slide, it's 20 reports in the last 3 months. If we could go to the next slide. One of the areas is down by the river, Barry Avenue. We've had quite a few reports of youths catapulting some of the swans. We are aware. We quite often do take proactive action, and we've identified quite a few of these offenders as well. Another incident that we are aware of, I'm not sure how far it's gone wide, but there's been incidents involving cats in Datchet as well, similar to sort of the ones with catapults in Datchet as well. We have identified offenders there, and we have taken robust action with those offenders, and we haven't seen any rise in those sort of incidents since. And we do work quite closely with Swan Lifeline as well regarding the catapulting. Theft from motor vehicles, there's been a spike of that in Dedworth recently. I think on the next slide, it's 39 reports in the last 3 months, which might not sound like a lot, but for theft from motor vehicles within 3 months, that is quite a large number. We've identified 3 separate offenders, and we have taken robust action with all of them. And what we're now hoping to see is there'll be a decline in the next month or two. We are completing similar operations with these offences as well. This includes nighttime patrols, overt and covert. And this is in relation to some of the bike thefts that happened in Dedworth as well, and I believe my colleague wants to discuss that.
Yeah, hello, I am PCSO Katie Knight and I cover Dedworth. So I'm just going to talk about the ongoing related bike thefts that are happening in Dedworth. So it has increased within the last couple of months. People have been reporting to us that have been suspicious people trying to look to possibly take their motorbikes. So we are very aware and we are looking into doing some operations regarding that. And I'm leading on that. As well as Sam Fox, who sat next to me, to try and tackle these offenders and get them and hopefully reduce the amount of motorbike thefts that is happening in and around Dedworth. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And the secondary aspect of these sort of offences is we're quite often visiting neighbours, residents and affected areas by educating them, providing them with advice on how to prevent it. I believe around 70% of these reports are all cars that have been left unlocked. So and this isn't victim blaming in any sense because it's not their fault. However, if the car was locked, it could prevent one of the offences. So one aspect we are trying to focus on is just to educate and provide support to those residents affected in order to deter and reduce that amount of offending. And I believe the last aspect is there's been some reports of graffiti and vandalism as well within Dedworth. On the next slide, 3 of the knowns or the tags, as they call it, is Chrome, Star 42 and 0. We've identified one of the offenders. We've taken proactive action by issuing them with a community protection notice, which essentially means that we're saying to them on a formal level, we are aware that you're the one committing this act of criminal damage. If it continues, then you're liable for prosecution. And ever since then, we've seen a decline in that. One aspect we are focusing on is the amount of reports that we're getting about it. We're not receiving as many reports as we believe we were. So what we are trying to do is liaise with residents within Dedworth and Clewer. To if they see it, let us know. The more people that tell us, the more action we can take, and the more the offending we can reduce. And CCTV is always going to be a big aspect. So that's another aspect we're looking at as well. And just to sign it off, there's we have a new app called TV Alert. It's a really useful app, and the easiest way to explain it is you sign up with the Thames Valley website. And what it does, it allows you to have direct contact with us. So say, for example, if we're looking for a particular offender within a certain community, we will put out a message that will send via email, text message, with photographs, messages, requests, and it can allow you to be more aware of what problems we have and how we can work with each other in order to reduce the amount of offending and deter criminality within our neighbourhood. But if you ever do need us, the website is the best way to contact us, and we work quite often out Windsor Police Station. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much both. That's very good, very comprehensive update. So let me invite any questions or observations. Councillor TV.
Thank you. Just a quick question on the graffiti. I'm really pleased that you were able to catch one of the offenders, and obviously they've had this notice. Is there a way to publicise that so it acts as a deterrent to others? How can we spread that so that the other would-be artists know that it's not worth starting?
That's a really good point. In relation to the offender, we won't be able to sort of say who it is. However, we can post it on social media to say we are aware, we have taken this positive action, and I will definitely. I think someone that works at Windsor that does work with the social media panel, and I'll contact them to spread the message to her.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. It's really useful. So I'm a councillor in Clewer and Dedworth East. I've got a couple of questions. First of all, I see the priorities. How did you get to those priorities? Because I would say a big priority in my ward is pavement parking, and I didn't see that mentioned. And I know that comes up in all our meetings with you, and it's becoming even more of an issue every day, I would say, even in some of our major roads. I'm seeing it even in Clewer East and Imperial Road. Every day there's big vans parked on the pavement, and you know, in my ward, it's always been a problem. So, you know, what's being done about that? And my second point is that you said about the graffiti, and yesterday when I walked into town, I saw the tag 44 quite a lot. So I think that's a new one.
Thank you for the question. The first one, we usually do it from 2 points of views. One is how often a certain report is being made, aka the graffiti was one where we had quite numerous reports coming through to us. So we decided, because of the vast amount of reports, we put it as a priority and put it onto our hotspot patrols and plans so we can tackle it that way. A second one is meetings such as this. If we'd be made aware, we're happy to put it on priority and start taking action that way. In relation to your second question, yeah, you are correct. It's still ongoing. We think there's numerous people still involved. In order to tackle that, we are just trying to stay in touch with residents and community teams and shopkeepers as well. And if ever it does happen, we treat it like any sort of incident. We look for CCTV, we speak to anyone if they've seen anybody, and we work with intelligence as well in order to see if they can identify people through social media. But it is an ongoing program.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, definitely pavement parking should be on the list.
Councillor Knowles.
I do notice, well, we're commending the team because obviously it's an ever shifting sort of thing. But I do notice that, and I pick up occasionally on social media, actually not thefts from vehicles, but vehicles being stolen, particularly keyless entry vehicles, which I'm not naming the types of vehicles it's prone for. But you know, is there any figures on that? I do notice it comes up, not regularly, but in the general area, it spikes up.
Yes, we are also aware of the keyless thefts as well. That is being treated through a separate department, through our roads policing department, because they have sort of different technology and different intelligence that they work with in order to identify those sort of offenders. Quite often, a lot of the time, it's cross-border offending. So offenders who come from different areas will come from, say, metropolitan area into Thames Valley, complete the theft, and then go back to the area. So it's a much larger issue than I think a lot of people anticipate. But we do quite actively try to deter that, but that's through other operations as well.
It might be worth sort of in future bringing a little bit of information about it, particularly because this tends to happen from people's homes, where they don't put the device in a Faraday case or something, and somebody stands by the front door and scans it. I think people are becoming aware of the risk, but I think it's something that does need highlighting. Whereas a lot of the theft from vehicles, as we know, tends to happen in parking areas of visitors to Windsor, but this affects residents particularly.
Yeah, I totally understand, and thank you for making me aware as well. I think one aspect as the neighbourhood department we can take lead on is sort of the engagement side and the education side. So if it ever does happen, we can go out to residents, we can complete our engagements and talk to them and discuss how you can deter it, how you can avoid it, and provide any support that they might need at the same time. But I do thank you for making us aware.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Jen, what is yours from me? Thanks.
Good evening, Jim O'Shea, just resident. Just this has been discussed on social media before, but we seem to get in a situation now where any kind of smallish group is tagged of youth, you know, and antisocial and so on. We are a generation where we probably had quite a lot of clubs and associations and things that would occupy people in the evening. I was wondering if you were working in partnership with anyone, or if you were aware of a wider consideration for having more activities available to kids who are just about to start the summer holidays, and they're going to seems that they would be roaming around for around 6 weeks, and there doesn't seem to me to be a lot to actually occupy them, and idle hands. And I just wondered what your perspective on that was, from the sense of view of, obviously, if you can stop it before it started, one would assume it's better than stopping afterwards.
Yes, in relation to sort of youth crime, youth offending, we have our own youth offending unit who work with a multitude of different sort of agencies in relation to deterrence of crime as a youth and criminality. Often our process, whenever we deal with criminal activity or social concerns of children, especially sort of drug use and drug possession, and obviously, as people are aware, knife crime is quite a priority at the moment as well. Whenever that does come to light with us, we often pass this over to the youth offending team, who then provide adequate support and liaison with other agencies in order to get those children that right support. So far, I haven't been made aware of any agencies that Windsor are currently working with in relation to the use, but that is something that I can look at and see where we're at with that.
Okay, thank you. And then moving to Mark, then maybe if we can see if there is any collaboration between the council and those youth organisations to see if we can't, work together.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Tizzy.
Thank you. Just on that, you might have seen there's free swimming this holiday for teenagers to get them not swimming in lakes and rivers, which is safe. Also, the family hub team I know work very closely with the police, and I know they share intelligence, and that's a really useful thing. There's also some new government guidance on youth provision, and what we should, as councils, be facilitating, if not necessarily running ourselves, but what we need to facilitate. So that's something that the family hub team are carrying out a review and making sure our provision can be as good as it can be.
Thank you. Yeah, I very much agree with the sentiments as well, and this is something that has come up before. Is that there does seem to be a sort of a gap in terms of youth activities, youth provisions. Maybe that's something we can take away and see if we can put that on an agenda for a future meeting. It would also be nice to have more youth representation here at the forum. Yeah, no, thank you for that point. We'll take that. We'll take that on. Thank you. Any more questions for the police? You said.
Hi, I'm John Webb. I'm a resident of Windsor. You mentioned earlier that you had a lot of resource put into preventing cycling down Prescott Street. I understand the council are trying to allow cycling down Prescott Street. Have you contributed to that consultation?
Personally, no. I believe it's strange you asked that. I think I spoke to another PCSO at Windsor, and there is discussion around, I think, creating a cycle path down Prescott Street. That's still ongoing. I'm not 100% sure around that aspect of if that cycle path has come in yet.
Hi, Sarah Walker, I'm a resident. Could we have some information on the possible cycling path down Prescott Street? That would be quite pertinent, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually, I'm not quite sure that's completely correct. As far as I'm aware, obviously there was a consultation running, which was triggered from the original consultation on renewal of the PSPO to consider whether the timings of when cycling was not permitted was adjusted. Those results have not. The consultation's been closed, and those results are being worked on by officers. So I don't know what they are. Not aware of any paths or any sort of infrastructure or anything like that. And yeah. Any further questions for TVP? Okay, well, thank you very much for presenting. As I say, very, very useful, and I guess you can stay or you're free to leave if you wish. Thank you. So moving on to agenda item 5, the Windsor and Eton Tourist Information Centre, an update from Chris Joyce, if Chris is able to join us again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will quickly give a quick verbal update, and then obviously we can open it out to any discussion and questions. So just to give an update, the council has released a statement today outlining its position in relation to the Windsor Information Centre. So that information is now in the public domain. This would have been communicated earlier, but it became an election issue, certainly during the campaign, and obviously due to the conditions in the pre-election period when the council has to be sensitive about what it communicates, we were unable to communicate anything really publicly until after the election period had been completed. Obviously, it's a very challenging situation for the council, particularly in relation to the finances, and we're having to find ways to do things differently to save money, particularly in non-statutory services like the Tourist Information Centre. Obviously, as part of that process, we've engaged with partners in the tourism and hospitality industry, particularly our partners on the Visit Windsor partnership, before we developed and implemented the proposals. Obviously, the world is changing. The majority of people are now accessing information and services via digital means. We've seen within the Tourist Information Centre face-to-face inquiries down to a fifth of the levels of pre-pandemic, and around 90% of sales of tickets and services that the TIC provide are now via digital channels, particularly through the online box office and concierge service. So that's meant that the decision was taken to close the counter service of the Tourist Information Centre in the Guildhall, and a new offer is being shaped and developed. We will continue with the online box office to maximise the retention of income to the council. We will be retaining the information screens and service within the old ticket hall, and we're working with partners across the town to ensure a good provision of physical information around the town. And actually, as part of the statement today, if there are any partners or businesses that want to get involved in that, then we'd very much welcome that. But we've already have deals agreed with various locations around the town to enable that ongoing provision of physical information, maps, tourist information around the town. We are also working closely with the Eton Information Centre, and also looking at how we can provide face-to-face ticket sales through a trial at Windsor Library to enable the retention of that service. The ceremonial wardens and Royal Borough ambassadors will continue to provide that warm welcome, particularly in targeted key arrival points in the town, to enable that kind of face-to-face meet and greet and information. And we're developing that mobile offer over the peak season, particularly during the tourism season over the summer. And also, we believe, therefore, that the proposals help us deliver against those financial challenges and provide us a service fit for the future, recognising the importance of tourism to the town. I'll pass back to you, Chair, to pick up any questions and comments, but I don't know whether Councillor Teasey wishes to add anything as the lead member for Windsor.
Thank you, Chris. I think you've covered it mostly. I think just to highlight the difficulty, obviously, with that pre-election period, and being very mindful not to make it a political issue during that time. So I appreciate the difficulties that you had as officers not being able to announce things immediately after the consultation had finished. But glad it can all be out in the public domain now.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Amy. Any other comments from the panel? Yes, Councillor Knowles.
Yeah, I think the election was quite a while ago, wasn't it? Really, to be honest. And the time delay between that and now could have been filled quicker. I do understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of this was going on with the ongoing redundancy and reprogramming of posts, which of course ties people into a timeline which goes on, which I'm told was finished by the 30th of June. So it seems, yeah, the difference between the election period, which caused the inability to communicate, or the timeline to redundancies, which was the overriding barrier to communication. That's what I find quite interesting.
So obviously, until the consultation finished with staff, we weren't able to communicate anything publicly, because that would have been effectively, until the consultation was complete, we weren't able to make a formal decision. Unfortunately, during the course of that, between the start of the consultation and the completion of the consultation, we then entered the pre-election period, which meant would have been fine for us to communicate had it have not become a local election issue. So it became an issue that some of the candidates were talking about, and therefore from that perspective, it became a political issue, which meant the council couldn't use its corporate channels to effectively communicate the information. So that was the challenge that we faced, and therefore that's why we've had to delay until after the election, and therefore that's why the information is coming out now.
Yeah, but I still would have expected in that case for it to be released on the 5th of July. And I don't think many people can understand why there was that great big gap till now. Everybody's been talking about it. The problem that we sort of have in the borough is, and it's true anywhere, when there's a lack of definitive information, rumour runs wild. And there it goes. And this here was a prime example of that. We know it's not a popular decision, that's a fact, but I think you people who are against the decision would have liked to know the earliest point that decision could have been passed around to people, certainly to allow them to have their say about things. So I hope in future the communication strategy around these things is planned a little bit better than this.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just take Councillor Carpenter first.
So thank you very much. I agree with what Councillor Knowles said, because, you know, obviously closed on the 30th of June and it was during the election period. So it would have just been good to, at least as councillors, have some clarity on that. I emailed someone on the 18th of June and I never received a response. So it's a difficult one. But I know some of the people here would be wondering about the museum, because that's obviously in the same building as the Tourist Information Centre, and we understand that that's now only opening for 4 hours a week, and that's on a Tuesday, which is a day when the castle isn't open. So I don't know if you've got any insight into that, or whether that's not a topic we can discuss here, but it would be good to have some information, more than it's just opening 4 hours a week. Thank you.
So I've actually got a meeting with both officers and councillors tomorrow to meet the Friends of the Museum. At the moment, the kind of limit on how much the museum is open is related to how we work with the volunteers, effectively, to enable it to be staffed. At the moment, the team are one of the reasons that we've made the decision to only open with volunteers. That the team are focused on developing a new model for the museum to enable it to continue its service with a kind of self-funding model, and therefore, rather than effectively manning the museum, they're spending their time on that particular project. That's in development. As I said, we've got a meeting with the Friends of the Museum tomorrow to discuss that further, develop the scope of that project, and obviously I'm quite happy to come back as information emerges from that particular piece of work, come back and update the forum as that progresses.
Yeah, I think that'd be useful. I think that I was a bit shocked that it was opening on a Tuesday, which is a day when the castle isn't open, so less people coming to Windsor. But anyway, yeah, I look forward to the updates in a future meeting. Thank you.
Can I just ask a little addendum to that from you?
Go on very quickly now. Yeah.
Hey, what is, I think, underwriting a lot of this with us is that the elected members, we didn't know about the Tourist Information Centre. We found out the same way the public did, by it being posted on social media, and likewise with the reduction of hours of the museum. We have to communicate these to the matters to the elected members, because that's where the public focus on, why don't you know? And I asked the question as well, why didn't we know? So it'd be interesting if you could dig into that for us, please.
Yes, thank you, and we'll make a note of that for the subsequent updates. Okay, so coming back a bit, then here.
Hi there, Sarah Walker. Thank you for the presentation, Chris. I'm just a bit baffled. I've read the press statement today, and I'm just a bit concerned that we have a very piecemeal and fragmented approach now to Windsor tourism. What Windsor really needs, we have 12 million visitors here a year. We have a multi-million-pound economy. It represents huge opportunities for our town. And what we really need is a central, fit-for-purpose, very well-organised tourist information centre and the museum working together with an effective plan. At the moment, there's hardly any signage, there's hardly any marketing done. There's very little in terms of commercial awareness. You've mentioned that you're working on a project. I think the council have had over 7 or 8 months to come forward with this kind of proposal. And, we're saying, well, we should have waited and should have been communicated since the election. Should have been communicated well before the election. People have been made redundant and were warned in December. We've had a petition of 1,700 people signing it to save these services for Windsor, which are opportunities, not just costs. And that petition hasn't even been responded to, not by, I'm referring to the council really here. I just think it's been a shambles. I think you're right that the comments that have been made, the communication has been dire. And I think the proposal that's been laid before us is inadequate. And I think Windsor deserves better. Is this the final answer for the tourist information trade in Windsor, or is there an opportunity to actually consult residents?
Chris, any comments on that?
From our perspective, obviously the decision's been made about with regards to making 2 members of staff redundant. Obviously we couldn't progress with that until the budget had been confirmed and approved by full council. And therefore we've gone through the due process in terms of consulting with staff and undertaking that. So in terms of the redundancies, that ran through due process, and that's why we ended up where we were. Actually, we've been working really closely with the tourism and hospitality businesses in terms of the plan, in terms of developing the long-term strategy. And as I added, actually, the future and the majority of engagement is through online channels. And actually, that's where it's been developed. That's where the Visit Windsor website has been developed. And I think actually we continue to work with partners to grow the tourism economy. And we've moved on from, I suppose, the face-to-face solution and starting to develop services and solutions that are fit for the future, rather than necessarily just continue to what we've always done. So I completely understand in terms of kind of process and communications, but in terms of developing the right solution for Windsor for the future, it's really important that we work closely with Visit Windsor partners to deliver solutions that they need.
Thank you, Chris. Just at this point, I wonder if it might be helpful to show a graph, Lawrence, if you have that chart of the inquiries that the information centre received over the last 8 years or so. I completely agree with your point about Windsor being, the tourism being a key part of the Windsor economy. Absolutely. So it is about looking to, how do we capitalise on that? And how do we effectively make the most of it? So this chart is from the economic growth team and just shows the sources of orders that the information centre has taken. I think the piece just hidden, that's it. That's effectively showing, that between online and concierge, which is basically hotels, so off site from the information centre, it's over 90%. And then 3% is phone, and only 6% of orders, of value of orders was taken at the centre. So I think the plan we've got is it's a matter of opinion whether it's fragmented or whether it's all encompassing, but it certainly covers a lot of bases, and we think it's relevant. So I note your comments, Chris, as well.
Could I just respond to that? Because I see that you've put orders there. This is about a visitor experience. It's not just about the value of the orders. Of course, that's important. We've talked about the economy. It's about the visitor experience to Windsor.
Yes, thank you.
I just want to finish.
Well, sorry, if I can just come in there, because there's a second chart which refers to that. So the second chart is about to appear. So this is the over-the-counter inquiry. So this is exactly what you're referring to. And you can see very clearly there a very dramatic decline from 15 to 19. Obviously 20 is impacted by COVID, and 21 the recovery. So it is, as Chris said, down to a small fraction of what it was. So that's the context. So please continue.
The context is that every business in the UK has been hit by online, if you like. It's a wonderful opportunity, but there are a significant number of people who don't or can't go online. And actually we need, even I'm quite adept online, but when I go abroad, I go straight to my tourist information centre. We need face-to-face recommendations. We want personal experience, and it's not adequate to be sent down St Leonard's Road or across to Eton, who have their own tourist information to support. To send visitors across to these different destinations is not acceptable. It's not a fit way to have a good visitor experience in Windsor.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Just at the back there. Apologies, Sue. Would you mind coming to the microphone, please? Sorry.
Sue Evans, resident. And what I'd like to know is what is the Guildhall going to be used for on a day-to-day basis, other than this 4 hours a week for the museum? Are there any plans? Because obviously you can market it and make money from the Guildhall itself through marketing, either giving tours of the history of it, etc., which would obviously then go towards helping the tourist information and the museum.
Thank you. Chris, any comments on that point?
So at the moment, there are no detailed plans for the downstairs of the Guildhall. It is currently still used for the museum, but as part of the project, looking at the kind of future of the museum, we'll be looking at different options for downstairs for the Guildhall.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just come back and ask, have they any idea what they're going to be as such? Because the months will go by and nothing will happen, and obviously the building will deteriorate.
Well, I don't think it'll deteriorate. It will be maintained. I think from Chris's answer, it's very much in progress. So we don't have it's an in progress piece. So we don't have an answer to that.
Yeah,
you can just let Councillor Davis.
Yeah, you mentioned about tours. I think we are available for volunteers in the Guildhall, at least who were a few years ago volunteers.
Yes, they're as part of the opening plan. Yes, there will be tours on offer.
Thank you. Gentleman just behind the
Duncan Reid, resident. What value are we actually talking here? What is the savings to the council shutting down this the over-the-counter service?
So across the board, this is part of a wider savings delivery plan for the economic growth team that delivered around £140,000 across 2 years of savings to the council.
So you're saying that it saved £140,000 by closing down the counter services?
No, that's effectively a range of things that have been delivered through the economic growth team. The budget for the Guild for the Tourist Information Centre was around £20,000, but actually it was not achieving its target. So therefore, it was around £50,000 in total in terms of the sort of cash saving that we were having each year.
Was it 20,000 or 50,000? Well, I don't understand what you're saying.
So the budget is 20,000, but as part of that, the income target wasn't being achieved. So actually, in terms of the impact on the council's budget as a whole, it's a saving of 50,000.
But you're still getting the income. So what I'm saying is the net loss, the net saving.
So the net saving to the council's budget is around £50,000. But what I'm saying is that you can have a budgeted amount and how much you actually spend on a service are two different things. So the saving to the council by not providing that service is around £50,000. But the saving to the budget, i.e. the budget was 20,000, but because we weren't achieving that budget in the same way as certain services will overspend, therefore, in effect, it's a 50,000 saving to the council.
So the difference in the two numbers is the anticipated income, which didn't then materialise. I believe I'm correct in saying that.
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Douglas.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. My name is Councillor Jack Douglas. I'm the new cabinet member for Communities and Leisure. I'll try and get the mic a bit closer to my mouth. Is that better? So my name is Jack Douglas, Councillor Jack Douglas. I'm the new cabinet member for Communities and Leisure. I've been in post since the election. Well, actually less than a week, so I'm just getting up to speed. I came to Windsor this morning for a 1-hour meeting at 9 AM and I haven't managed to get home yet. So it's an interesting learning curve, but yeah, I'm making progress. What I'd like to say is that, I mean, obviously it's always a concern when services are changed. That's totally understandable, whether they're being cut or whether they're being improved and modernised. As I understand it, the legitimate concerns here are around the effect on businesses. This is not a resident-facing service, of course. It's for tourists, and ultimately that's affecting the economy and indirectly residents as well. My understanding from officers is that we haven't had concerns raised by businesses. Although that's a good sign, that doesn't mean there aren't any concerns, it just means they've not been raised by us. So if residents, if yourself, Sarah Walker and other residents, if you would like to come to, if you get in contact with visitors would like to come to me with them directly, I'd be very interested to hear those. And just on an earlier point, Councillor Knowles, on future occasions, if you have issues where you need information in a timely way, please do copy me in if it's in the tourism portfolio. I'll do my best to get to facilitate.
I know nothing.
Okay. Thank you.
But all I can say is I do know that there, as was described, there were targets, income targets, which were largely stated. I'm the person who suggested, don't forget, we put the tourist information into the museum from the railway station to achieve a saving on the rent down there and to make it more central and accessible. So I was kind of a champion of the idea. What I didn't expect was to be inside the museum the way it was. So the museum could actually no longer physically charge entrance. And that struck me as a very odd decision to place it there. If it had been in the entranceway and people got some tourist information for free, they might have been tempted to pay to walk around the museum. I don't know, but not the other way around, not to pay to go into the museum to get the tourist office. You can still do it. It doesn't need to be as big as it was. You can make it smaller, you can make it more compact. But there are uses that you can put the Guildhall to. It's used a lot for weddings and various things, but the meeting space isn't properly utilised. So with some development and some planning, personally, I think the attraction is the Guildhall, not the museum. And I would love you to be able to get in and walk around when it's not being used for weddings or other things. And I think in itself, you could tell the story of Windsor in the Guildhall as you go around and make it a much more exciting and dynamic space. But also use technology. But as you quite rightly said, don't let everybody behind, don't leave people behind. A large proportion of visitors to Windsor are senior citizens who probably aren't silver surfers or whatever they're called these days. So we need to make sure we catch everybody. But also, as the rest of the plans develop, to create income streams, to retain the valuable volunteers and the people who support the museum and the Tourist Information Centre. There's a lot of people that are really, really engaged in this, and we shouldn't leave anybody behind with any of the plans that go on. And as you said, bring everybody into the table and ask what they think.
Thank you, Neil. Mr. Webb.
John Webb, President. The council collects around about £500,000 from Windsor residents in their unparished precept. Why was none of that available to be used for the tourist information? Something specific to Windsor that you collect money from us for, and you can't even find the money from that. You're taking our money and using it over in Maidenhead while all our services are being cut. It's not on.
Any comments on that, Chris? Oh, might still be on mute, Chris.
Probably colleagues in finance will be able to pick that up in greater detail. So I suggest we pick that up as an action. My understanding is that certainly the special expenses wouldn't be funding services that are living in Maidenhead. They'd be funding services that would be otherwise provided by, for example, a parish council. But I think colleagues in finance would be in a better position to answer the details of that, because that is a much more technical finance question around the workings of special expenses.
Oh, can I come back?
So if we can, I think what I would like to do is just manage the expectations around the ability of the people present in the meeting to answer all and every question that's raised, because we clearly have a very interested and engaged public gallery here.
I think you will be able to answer and follow.
Yeah, so if we can note that first question and we'll pick that up in the actions from the minutes for the next time. Yes, Mr.
As a part of your election manifesto in 2023, you promised to reinstate the Windsor Town Council. What progress have you made on that?
Thank you for raising that. I think the most appropriate way to answer that would be to put that on the agenda of a future meeting and have possibly Councillor Davis present on that, as she is the lead member for Windsor Town Council. Thank you. Councillor Davis.
So if the Guildhall was rented out for any sort of in future, if it becomes available, how much revenue would we be likely to see from that?
Thank you. And again, possibly that, I don't know, I doubt, well, do you have that off the top of your head, Chris?
I think that would obviously depend on what you rent it out for. I wouldn't be able to answer that off the top. As I said, we're doing the work to look at the options for the Guildhall. We're engaging with kind of a number of stakeholders to look at the different options, and we'll pick that up as part of the work. But obviously at the moment it does generate a significant amount of income for us in terms of the wedding and events that we put on there. So certainly there's an opportunity there.
Thank you. Yes, I think it is very clear that the administration recognises, or the significance of the Guildhall and the potential of it, and that's something that we're definitely looking to make the most of, as you've said. Yes, Smallgar.
Sorry, me again, but there is so much on this topic. The previous administration were looking for accreditation of the museum, and one of the reasons was that they firmly wanted it to continue, not to be closed, as I understand some people have been saying. What plans are there for continuing that accreditation, the benefit of which is it opens up opportunities for the museum to apply for grants and funding, income streams in, not cuts? So is that accreditation for the museum still continuing, please?
Yes, so the museum has been awarded that accreditation I think subject to us completing a couple of other elements, but that's a key part of the work that we're doing around the kind of future model for the museum. And I think attracting grant income is a really important part of how, when we've spoken to other museums that have picked up self-funding models, for example, Egger Museum, grant income is a really important part of that, and that's something that we're looking at. And in fact, I think there was a grant bid submitted today to the Arts Council. So it's very much part of the plan and the strategy for developing that future model for the museum.
Thank you, Chris. And if I can just add to that, I think there's a huge potential for a museum in Windsor, which isn't being realised at the moment. And as I say, the process is ongoing in terms of how we would structure it and what it would look like. But I think there's a huge amount of potential, and we would want to capitalise on that. Further questions? Yes.
At the risk of being skinned alive. Look, to save a lot of us here a lot of time on social media, is there any way that the current or the previous or both of you together can sit down and actually explain to the people in clear terms what was or wasn't budgeted for, what was or wasn't allowed for, what has or hasn't happened? Because, Sarah, myself, a number of people here spend a lot of time arguing, debating, discussing in a friendly way various options on that theme, this topic and various other topics. And the fact of the matter is that I don't have access to the previous or the current council's books. I don't know what really was or wasn't, specifically done. And whatever I do think has been done will get counteracted almost immediately by someone who doesn't think that's what happened. And I don't see how we're going to get any actual finality out of this unless you guys actually do what I believe you all said you were going to do, which is be as transparent as possible. And I don't say you're not being, but this is clearly an issue that has been rumbling along now for, I don't know how long you guys have been in power. So a week before you guys were in power, so it's been going on for ages now. It hasn't got any better through the general election. It hasn't got any better after the general election. It's not going to get any better with everyone just sat in their corners shouting at each other. So really there needs to be some clarity from the people across the board, across the parties that we've elected into positions of authority to say categorically these are the facts. Is that too much, Russell?
Thank you. No, that's a very fair point, and you're absolutely right. It was one of the things that we did campaign on, was more transparency. Again, there's a limit to which we can answer detailed questions off the top of our heads. But what I can say in terms of the budget, my understanding is that the budget was effectively removed in February 23 for the 23-24 financial year.
I don't mean now. I'm not asking for a statement now. What I'm saying is you issued a statement today to confirm the fate of the tourist centre, and that's blown up obviously because of what's going on 2 hours before the forum, blah, blah, blah. So why don't we just take a pause and have the moment where there is an official statement confirming facts that comes out via RBWM rather than via, one of the Windsor Facebook social pages.
Well, sorry, this was a press release issued by RBWM.
Yeah, I know it was today,
So
but the past history is the bit where everyone is fighting.
So sorry, just another point on transparency. This is something that we are very keen on, and is critical. The budget papers are very detailed. Obviously, the financials of the council are very complicated, and the budget papers as they are now, extend to several hundred pages. We are constantly looking at ways of making those clearer, and more transparent. So very much take that on board. And again, we're very much, open to suggestions as to how we can improve that. We're working on it ourselves. We've got our own suggestions, and that is very much a theme. Just slightly conscious of time, I want to kind of draw this sort of to a close. We have a few more hands.
Ian's at the back.
Yeah,
Do you want to take the
gentleman just coming forward. Thank you.
Hello, Ian Haggett. I'm a resident. I'm also one of the coordinators for the ceremony warden team, as some of the people around it so people know. I'm just interested to know that we'd be mentioned in your press release. We do the meet and greet, and we work on the largest terrorist operation outside London with the guard change. So can I ask what the expectation now is, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the expectation is that you continue to do the fantastic work that you are doing, and we know that you welcome visitors to Windsor in a fantastic way, and we'd like you to carry on, please.
Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Thanks, Councillor TC. Can I just add to that I was formerly the RBWM volunteering champion, and that role has been rolled into my new cabinet role. I just want to say that for a slightly different take on that is that we don't have expectations of volunteers. We just have gratitude towards them. Volunteers are free to stop doing what they're doing whenever they choose, and we're well aware of that they need praise and nurturing and whatever appropriate support we can give them. We'll give you 200%.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, I'd like to wrap that session up. We're obviously that agenda item up. Very good contributions, and we've got several actions which I'll just confirm as we follow through. So if I can move to item 6 on the agenda, the Windsor and Eton Society, and invite Teresa Haggart to present.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa Haggart. I'm chair of not the Windsor and Eton Society. I'm chair of the Heritage and Environment Committee of the Windsor and Eton Society. So just to clarify that, please. I'm also a trustee of the society. So the Windsor and Eton Society, you can move on. So the Windsor and Eton Society, we're just going to talk about a little bit about the history of it, the aims of the society, the projects we do, the talks and outings, and the planning. So if I can move on one further. The Windsor and Eton Society is the largest civic society in Windsor with over 300 members. We support projects around the town and have made donations to projects including the Windsor Museum, as we feel it's an important way to share the history of the town with residents and visitors. The Windsor and Eton Society grew out of the widespread national determination following the Second World War to build a better society in Britain. A meeting was arranged at the Windsor Guildhall on Friday, January the 18th, 1946. It was to be non-party, non-sectarian, and it still remains so. The first of its objectives was to encourage among people of Windsor and Eton an active interest in the history, present affairs, future prospects of the towns, and afford them the opportunity for constructive suggestions. The Windsor and Eton Society has 3 charitable objectives: to preserve, protect, promote and improve features of the historic and public interest in the town, Windsor and Eton towns and the surrounding areas, to promote high standards of planning and architecture in the towns and surrounding areas, and to advance the education and provide information to members and others supporting the work of the society, and aims to encourage the people of Windsor and Eton to take an active interest in history, present affairs, and future prospects of their towns, maintain and extend the town's amenities and encourage care for the old and interesting buildings, provide informative talks on relevant subjects and arrange visits to sites and buildings of historic and architectural interest, to enhance the good names of Windsor and Eton and increase the esteem in which they're held. Those things have been there since it started in 1946. They haven't changed, but they're as relevant today as they have always been. Projects. There has been a facelift project every 10 years of the Queen Elizabeth II's reign. The society encouraged owners of premises in the conservation areas to upgrade and repair their shop fronts in readiness for the event. That happened every 10 years until 2022 for the Platinum Jubilee. As we'd just come out of COVID, we looked at how we could make the town better without causing people to spend vast amounts of money that they didn't have. So we changed it. We made it shop window and floral display competitions. awards were presented by the then Duke of Wessex. This was then followed up later that year by a bit of a refresh for the funeral of Her Majesty just a few months later, when once again Windsor was in the spotlight around the world. Some of the projects that we've done along with that Jubilee was the Heritage Garden in Church Street. Now that's been an ongoing thing for years. In fact, right at the back of that, I didn't actually photograph it, just where that white window is in the back there, near there, there is a plaque that's dedicated to one of the last ones. And there is a new plaque that went up for the last Jubilee. The volunteers we have ones from Windsor and Eton Society, we have the Soropterists, we have other people that come and volunteer to help. We clear it up regularly. We support the shops along there who help us and appreciate the fact that it looks like a really nice place to go and sit. And a lot of the castle staff use it as somewhere to go and have a quiet cup of coffee out of workspace. That was it after we cleared it all up. The second time. The first time, unfortunately, somebody came along at the time of the Queen's Jubilee and removed all the plants as the tidy up from the contractor and just destroyed them. So we've planted again, and we will continue to keep watering it. And we did actually have one member of our committee who went every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning with 6 cans of water in the back of her car, parked it in Church Street, watered the garden, and then got everything back in the car and left, because she felt it was so important that this was actually kept alive during that first summer. We had a bench put in, a platinum Jubilee bench in the Heritage Garden, which is used on it regularly, and the garden is now an awful lot fuller than that. That was done at the time it was actually put in. We did a couple of gardens as well for the Platinum Jubilee. We had Thames Street garden, and we also did the little bit before the bridge at the at the Christopher Wren. It's not looking very good again, but unfortunately we couldn't be there looking after it, and you cannot take the cans of water up there on a regular basis and keep it going forever. So this one is the latest one we did, the Memorial Garden in Bachelor's Acre, and we had it planted. We planted it up for the D-Day anniversary. We again, it's watering is the difficulty, but we've persevered, or Alison has persevered. And with a band of others. We also look after the Charles Knight Garden in Bachelor's Acre as well. We have been working for a very long time to try and get a condition survey of the Guildhall with the full maintenance plan. One of the issues the society have is that there isn't this plan, so therefore the general maintenance is not regularly done. We've had a problem with, in the Corn Market, the roof collapsed because of water ingress from the gutters that hadn't been cleared. And something as simple as that, but we've asked for a full survey, because if you want to use that building, at the moment, nobody has any idea what the state of it is. So we've done that. So, okay, go on. We've also made, with the help of conservation officers, compiled a list of locally important buildings and other features called the non-designated heritage assets for Windsor and Eton, and they are part of the Windsor Neighbourhood planning document. It's a full bit, and I did pick this one particularly, Royal Borough of New Windsor, bylaw for good rule and government. The riding of bicycles, tricycles and other similar machines on this footpath is prohibited. Maximum penalty £5 by the town clerk. It's something around town. I bet most of you have never seen that one. There are other things around the town. If you look at that document, there are things around that are hidden in places that you suddenly come across, and it's a good document to do. After years of seeing the cockpit in Eton being left open to the elements, I mean, there it was in the first picture of what it looked like. The second picture was where they stripped it all out to redevelop it and left it open to the elements. It was going to be destroyed if we didn't do something about it. We pushed and managed to get it covered. Still covered, it's not finished, but at least it couldn't deteriorate much further from where it was. Otherwise, it would have been a state of pulling it down and losing it forever. One of our next projects is the restoration of the King Charles I execution warrant. Can I ask if anyone knows where that is? Jolly good, because you've seen it with us. Yeah. It's in Church Street, up on the wall. And actually, for the Windsor and Eton Society Trustees meeting, the agenda item was King Charles's execution warrant. It happened to be the first meeting after he'd been crowned, so it was a bit, we had to clarify that one. But at the moment, I mean, it's in a very, very poor state, but we want to return it to its original. The talks and outings. We try and go to lots of different places around the town, around the area. I mean, those are just a few of the ones that have been recently. And it's a coach, or it's a group of people who go and really have a good day looking at other places of interest to them. The talks happen either at the old court now, or they're done by Zoom. And we've had a massive amount of people coming along to give talks. Very interesting. Very handy if you're on a Zoom and you can have a glass of wine while you're watching it, but very informative, and they are sometimes recorded for people to look at again. Just depends on who's giving the talk. But that's just a flavour of what we've had. Planning. Right, the committee meets on the first Monday of every month to discuss all planning applications that have been submitted. Committee members have a wide range of interests and expertise, including architecture, conservation, and the environment. Questions we ask on every application. Does the application meet National Planning Policy Framework, the Borough and Windsor Neighbourhood Plan Design Guides? Are they of good overall design? Do they meet conservation area policies? The next one, sorry. Thank you. Does the layout of proposed developments give future occupants good quality living space? Are they the best design they can be? I think. Oh, there's one that you missed. Yeah, sorry. That's it. Do they enhance the neighbourhood, suit the area, look in keeping with the original design of the property? Do they have enough amenity space? Are the trees on the site preserved and protected? Do they increase the biodiversity of the area? There you go. Does the layout of the proposed developments, and with these we mean some of the big developments, give the future occupants good quality living space? Are they the best design they could be? I've actually sat at planning meetings and heard people say, it's better than the last plan, so we better let it through. Or it's not good, very good quality because of it's got something wrong with it, but it will give us 12 affordable houses. To us, that is not the way it should work. We should be striving for the best design it can be. And the Windsor and Eton Society has had that as their main all the way through. It shouldn't just be, it's just about okay. We write community comment letters if we deem it necessary, and I can say that it's usually about 75 a year, sometimes more. Some of the developers changed their plans to meet the policies and the design guidance following our comments. Windsor Yards took a floor off the top of theirs after we commented and said that it looked like a carbuncle on the top. You know, so it's possible. It can be changed. We look very carefully at applications for the removal of mature trees around the town, as some of the reasons for this are often for convenience rather than the quality of the tree. Where a tree is given permission for removal, we request that a replacement tree is planted to ensure the maintenance and increase the biodiversity in the towns. Sometimes a tree can be the focal point of an area, you know, not just the biodiversity, but the actual look of the amenity for those who live there. And trees do an awful lot of good things. So we really want them to be saved. So that has become our standard letter. The Heritage and Environment Committee have held regular meetings with the RBWM officers over many years. The agendas have covered topics such as planning, the look of the towns, future town development plans, the Guildhall, enforcement, litter issues being among other things, but more importantly, how the Windsor and Eton Society can support the borough in making the towns even better places to live. The Windsor and Eton Society work to enhance the environment of Windsor and Eton towns so that they maintain their historical importance and are attractive to both visitors and more especially the residents who live here. And if you want to know more or would like to join us, there's the link at the bottom. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Very interesting and impressive presentation, and that is a commendable piece of work that, that you and the rest of the Windsor and Eton Society undertake, and the Heritage and Environment Committee in particular. Firstly, just an apology to Sue Evans. I clearly misspoke when I said that the Guildhall would be maintained with its normal annual maintenance.
Oh.
Clearly, we've taken a note of that and we'll be following up on that, because I was very disappointed to hear that. So apologies for that assumption. Then any...
Can I just say, yes, there is a cost involved to that. The cost of this survey, which is really, really, really necessary, is a cost that would need to be factored in.
Yes, clearly, as with everything that we're kind of talking about, the undercurrent is the cost of everything. But I think there are some things where, you know, we need to find a way to do something, and this is clearly one of them in my view. So we'll take that up.
You can't use the Guildhall if it falls apart.
Absolutely.
And if it looks horrible, people won't have it for their weddings, even with all the history that's there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. As I say, I was under the clearly the naive assumption that there was an ongoing maintenance plan, but we'll pick that up. Any questions or other comments for Teresa, Councillor Knowles?
Thank you, Chair. As you know, I'm a firm supporter of the Windsor and Eton Society and always have been. What it gives us all is a basis in corporate knowledge, which goes on for years and years, word of mouth, from 1946. And with the fast-moving world we live in, that's actually the most invaluable thing about it, having that anchor to what that building originally was, and where it fitted in the context of where it is. And I certainly have been involved in planning over the years, and I'm certain other people who've been on planning always appreciate the comments on applications sent forward. Though they are, because they're concise, they're not emotional, and they just lay out points, which sometimes not everybody knows. You know, it's quite interesting to pull in that bit of information. So I commend you for that. And also, one of the hidden organisations that supports things around the town, and people don't realise. You know, I often thought we should be a bit louder with the trumpet and let people know what you're doing, because the contributions towards the Jubilees, for example, over the years has been invaluable. and triggering campaigns like the water fountains and things like this. They've all been again driven by ideas that have come from society. It's such a valuable part of our fabric of life here. I wonder why there isn't one in Maidenhead. Should get one going perhaps. But it is really important to have that voice of wisdom. That's what I call it. Okay.
Thank you, Neil. Yes, Teresa.
Can I just say that working on the Jubilee, it meant that we got to know all the shops and offices and things like that. And it was a really good experience for us as well, because everyone was keen to get on with it and do things, and it pulled people together. And we actually went and visited all sorts of places to and asked them if what they could do, knowing full well that we didn't want it to cost an awful lot of money, because we didn't want to add another burden. But they all felt that they were part of it, and once it started to build, then it became more. And I actually had somebody come up to me in the street and sort of say, "I've done this so and so now." It's like, shh, will you? So it really was a good experience. So we'll have to have a 10th anniversary of the King's one to bring it together. It did bring the town together for that.
Thank you. No, that's very good to hear. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for that presentation. It just brought to mind a couple of points. Is you talk about trees in the borough. I think there's not enough attention paid to the husbandry of trees. Yeah, you can protect them, but they need pruning. They need looking after. There's so many trees in the borough that are being choked by ivy. That's important. And the second point I'd like to make is you mentioned the cockpit. And I live in Eton High Street, and there's two projects down there which were allowed to go ahead, which were completely uneconomic. There was number 53 High Street, and there was the cockpit. And I think RBWM would benefit the residents by having some form of check for the economic viability of a project by a developer. And both projects were taken on by inexperienced contractors too, and developers. And I think there should be some basic check. Otherwise, you end up with situations again where you've got years of blockage in the high street and Eton and other places, just for developers. Do you know what you're doing? Have you costed it? Are you making enough profit out of it? Is it likely to finish? I think that should be an important consideration by planning.
Thank you. No, that's a very good point. Again, just the ability to answer questions off the top of our heads, not sure, but what I would like to do is pick that up, because I know Devon and myself have been very involved with the cockpit particularly, and are personally very frustrated with the challenges that it's had since we got involved last May. Those are very good questions for essentially the work of planning, and so maybe we'll take that forward and pick that up in the next meeting.
Sorry, can I just stop?
We occasionally have to do this, but this isn't the Eton Park Forum.
Yes.
It's Windsor, and I think you have to draw a line between the two at times.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Councillor. That was a point in my mind actually. That obviously Eton has its own town council, which covers Eton and Eton Wick. But also the point about the planning is obviously Eton doesn't control its own planning, whereas RBWM does. So that's point taken. Right, sorry, lots of hands. Let's go around. Teresa.
Can I just come back on that one? Usually we're told that actually the finance of a planning application is nothing to do with whether or not it's a plan that can go ahead or not. That you can't ask whether or not there's enough money.
Right, as I say, I don't know off the top of my head, but let's look into it because, it's not. Right. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation, Teresa. I just wondered whether the Windsor and Eton Society has an Instagram page or something where we can easily follow you and follow the updates.
Not at the moment. The website is as far as we get.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davis.
So when I joined Windsor in Society, I was struck by how affordable membership was. Would you like to remind us just how cheap it is?
We're a whole £10 a person, or £15 for a couple. No excuses whatsoever. And you see all the things you get for it. We do also have people who then contact us to say, can you help us with this thing or that thing, or can we have that as our next thing? So it's a two-way bit.
Thank you. That's very good to be advertising that. I think, yeah, you might have an increase in membership shortly. Any other comments on the Windsor Inn Society? Yes, Councillor Teasy.
Thank you. It's lovely to see those planting projects that are ongoing for other significant occasions, and I think there might be some more of that afoot in the pipeline. So it's really lovely to see that, because I know one of the things that residents often say is that our parks are not planted up anymore with those sort of seasonal flowers and things, and there are good reasons why that's not the case, but it's really wonderful that we can explore that through voluntary groups, and we're really appreciative of your efforts there, so thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I completely agree. Given the council's finances, I think the more we can collectively kind of pull groups of volunteers together to do this nice maintenance, it is a great piece of work. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Okay, so if I can move on to item 7, the town manager update. Paul.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you. Just before I start, I'd also like to say I've had the pleasure of working with the Windsor Eton Society on a number of those projects, certainly at the top of Teresa's presentation, most of the facelift projects since 2012. Heritage Garden, I think I was out digging holes with Teresa and others in the Heritage Garden at the back. So some really good projects. So well done. In terms of my presentation, I've got a few slides, not many. The first thing that I would say is actually, Lawrence, have you got them? I don't know if everybody can see that yet. Oh, okay, brilliant. Yeah, if you hit slideshow, thank you. If you move on to the next slide, thank you. The first thing I would say is that I've tried to add a few more slides. I was asked about trying to provide a little bit more information, not just about when we provide footfall detail, we tended to only do that for Pescud Street. So obviously with the new Visitor Insight website that we now have and we have access to, we get a little bit more detail and we can try and focus on different areas of the towns, both certainly centrally in Windsor and possibly further afield. We still have some more work to do, and we're still sort of trying to identify more geofences, but with every geofence costs more money as part of the license. So I'll show you in the next couple of slides the areas that I'm now following, but there is an opportunity to follow more, particularly with footfall. So this footfall count, and you've seen this graph before on the left, just showing you the blue line at the top, is the current footfall for the whole of central Windsor. I have to stress that because I've realised in previous presentations, people, and we've got other partners that have footfall counts, and they say that doesn't look anything like what we've got. So this takes the whole footprint of Windsor Town Centre, from the riverside right up to the castle, down towards St Leonard's Road. So all of those key trading hubs are covered by this current plan. So on the left, you've got the footfall. It's showing that in June, we had a significant increase, 19%, over 19%. The table on the right just really shows you the graph over the year of that same area. We obviously had a dip in May last month. I think possibly mainly due, it wasn't a particularly good month for weather, May, so that had something to do with it. Also in June, we had a number of events as well. We had Royal Ascot, we had Garter Day, the Summer Fair. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So obviously that all sort of supports an increase in footfall. Next slide, please, Lawrence. Thank you. So here, as I say, I'm breaking down a few more areas. So whilst the whole area seems to have been seen a significant increase, Pesca Street more specifically less so. It has seen an increase, but it's only an 8% increase. And then St Leonard's Road slightly higher on 11%. We do get footfall counts for the shopping centres, and interestingly, their footfall count still shows a reduction overall in terms of their footfall for the same period last year. But again, you can see on the annual tables there, we had dips both in April and May, certainly in Pesca Street, and then for St Leonard's Road, actually, interestingly, just before Christmas last year, which again, I know we saw some bad weather. Next slide, please, Lawrence. Yeah, Riverside. I put this one in. So the Riverside effectively covers the area from just right of the leisure centre all the way across, so through Barry Avenue, Alexandra Gardens, to the bridge, just beyond a little bit of Thames side. So it includes a little bit of that. So very, very visitor orientated. You know, obviously a lot of stuff that impacts the river. So that's a geofence that we said is quite important, and it's important to monitor. And you can see there from the figures that we've had from the same period from last year, we've gone up nearly 22%, and that basically is the main reason why the first table that I showed you is as high as it is, because this is built into that. So it's important that clearly, you know, the weather has a lot to do with that. Also, we know with the a lot of the rain and earlier sort of weather that we had a lot of high flood water at the beginning of the year, which you've seen obviously numbers sort of drop and then pick back up as those services, those waterborne services, have come back into operation. Next slide, please. Vacancy rates. Again, the table on the left just shows you what we have been covering in terms of Windsor. I do have a similar table for Eton. I was asked about possibly trying to do a similar one for other parts. Dedworth, I have done an assessment at Dedworth. Vacancy rates in Dedworth are actually very strong. I think there is only one empty unit along the sort of Dedworth Road, and we found that most of the smaller towns and villages have actually stayed quite strong in terms of their occupancy levels, sort of 1%, 2%, or 3% really. Pesca Street is at 7%, so not bad compared to the national average, which is about 13.9%, 14%. We are still seeing stores opening, and there's a number that have opened recently that I've put on the form there. We are expecting a few more to open, so there are quite a few under development. Trailfinder, as we all know, in the High Street. Itsu, for those that don't know, Sushi Bar, that's opening on the 28th of July this week. If you haven't been to an Itsu bar, you should definitely go to the Windsor one. It's phenomenal what they've done with the old Halifax unit. It's transformed it. So it'll be an interesting experience. So I would advise everybody to go down and try that out. Kluwer, I haven't yet collected data on Kluwer yet, but as I have that, I will then hopefully provide that at future updates. Next slide, please. Car parking. So car parking is quite an important subject, and I know, unfortunately for Kluwer and Dedworth, just so that we don't collect data on any of the car parks in those areas. So unfortunately, this purely sort of relates to Windsor. We do have separate data on Eton. But car parking has actually remained quite flat. I think it was down 1%, I think I reported in May. In June, it's down 2%. So not really in balance with what we see with footfall. It doesn't have to be, but it's noticeable that we seem to slowly be getting a downward curve on that. I was asked at the last meeting whether or not that was anything to do with pricing, the change in pricing. I've got to be honest, don't know yet. I think only time will tell in terms of where that curve goes. We've not hit the peak of the summer yet, so we'll just have to keep watching it. I can tell you that discounts, the Advantage Card discount scheme, since in the first quarter, we've seen, I think it's around about 6,000 users of the discount scheme, and that has grown. It's around about 1,900 to 2,000 users per month. So we're sort of at around two and a bit thousand users. So that is slowly increasing, which again may indicate where the tide is going on that. As I said, no data on Dedworth and Clewer. Next slide, please, Lawrence. Just some images here of some events that we have seen. Some of them I advised at the last briefing. In the top right-hand corner, you've got the Royal Flower Show, which sold out last year at the York Club. The next slide, sorry, not the next slide, Lawrence, don't change it. The next image down is just an image of our street gallery that took place over the weekend as part of our en plein air, so outdoor painting competition. And the larger slide is a picture of all of our winners over the weekend. We had over 95 artists. In fact, at the castle saw their record audience or visitors. I think it was 9,500 people came into the castle that day. So very warm welcome that artists received there. Bottom left is Rock the Wreck on the 6th of July. I'm sure councillors can give more information if required on that day. I know it wasn't dry. I think it was dry, then it was wet, then it was dry. But again, a great event and enjoyed by many people. The very thin image in the middle there is just the duck race that was hosted at the end of June as part of the summer fair. And we raised well over sort of £3,500 for the Windsor and Eton Rotary Club, and also contributions to the Christmas lights. One image that is missing off here that I did put on, but I think it's been missed, is the live bandstand program. So since June, we've been hosting live bands on the bandstand every weekend. So this year we've done quite well. My colleague Mike Brown has been coordinating a lot of the bands. We've got over 29 bands performing from sort of mid-June all the way through to sort of middle of September. We've got some notable big bands coming. We've got the Big Sing event on the 10th of August, where we're expecting to see 200 singers perform on the bandstand, and then they go on to perform on the grass moat in front of the castle, and I think also on the long walk. So a lot of performances and opportunities for people. If there's, if you want to do something for free, come and watch one of our live bands. I think the only weekend we haven't been able to cover so far is the bank holiday in August. But every weekend, if you came to Alexandra Gardens, you will be able to see a live band, woodwind band, brass band playing. So, and they're coming from all over the country. So really proud of that program. Next slide, please, Lawrence. And just finally, yes, that's just an update from my last slide from the last meeting on events and activities that we're planning for in the sort of coming months as we move into autumn, winter. We are already Christmas planning, believe it or not. We've had 2 Christmas planning meetings. So we are sort of trying to assemble various groups and volunteers to bring together our Christmas program. Those are the sort of key ones that have been registered so far, but we do expect a few more. And that's it, Chair. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Paul. Very good presentation. Any comments? Mr. Webb, I think first.
Hi, Paul, John Webb. On a couple of the last hot days, I've noticed around town lots of coaches parked on residential streets. Just wondering, is your coach park full at any time?
Yeah, so we haven't monitored this as closely as we have in previous years because obviously the footbridge was closed for some period of time. What we are finding, and I've seen this, yes, sometimes we can get the coach park can hold something like 100 coaches, and we can see over 200 coaches using that facility in one day. So there is a bit of churn there. What we are finding is that some coaches don't want to pay. And those that don't want to pay simply find a place to park. I came in, I think this is only last week, I've come in on Royal Windsor Way and I've seen 5 coaches parked in that little lay-by, just on the, I think it's on the Slough side of Royal Windsor Way. And they're just sitting there waiting for their call to come and pick their colleagues up. So the coach park is used probably more so as a pickup drop off than it is used for a coach park, which is unfortunate. But yeah, unfortunately, some coach drivers do that. What I would say is if we've got coaches or if you see coaches parked in residential roads, I tend to go up to the coach driver and tell him why he's parked there and why isn't he using the proper coach park that's available to him. Or I just snap the photo, a picture of the company, and I drop them a nice little note to say, can you tell me why your driver has decided not to use the coach park? So you can report that, especially if they're parked somewhere that they shouldn't be and possibly warrants an enforcement measure, but it does happen.
Thank you, Paul. Just to pick up a point, obviously you're in a particular position to be able to report incidents direct to companies. What advice would you give to residents? And I've seen some myself, so.
I would say it needs to go to the parking enforcement team in the first instance, especially if they're parked in residential roads. As far as I'm aware, and I could be wrong, I don't know of any coach parking, bus parking facility on any residential road in central Windsor. They can't use bus stops, and I have approached a number of coaches using bus stops because unless they're a scheduled local service, no coaches are allowed to use bus stops to drop off and pick up in. The only exception to that is Windsor Castle school buses or coaches dropping off children going to the educational centre at the castle. No one else is permitted to do that in any of the bus stops in Windsor.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, clearly this is kind of a developing trend, which is quite concerning, and I think let's sort of note that and try and take a look at it.
Yeah, in the past I've reported one or few in on the slip road down near the tennis club, and I reported it directly to the parking manager, and he takes it up with the coach company. So sorry, sort of parking at rbwm.gov.uk is probably the best way, isn't it? Yeah, the best way to get in touch. Yeah.
And it might also be worth us looking at some kind of different payment arrangement for the coach park. Yeah, drop off payment. Yeah, like an entry or something. Yes. Yes, Mr. Reid.
Yeah, Duncan Reid from Eton. Thanks for your presentation, Paul. You're always very hands-on with your work, and it's always very much appreciated. I was in Southend last week, and over on the Thames estuary, and they have a policy there whereby residents can buy a monthly car park ticket for the central car park, so people in outlying residential areas can easily get into the centre of town and do their things, and it's like 10-15 quid or something for a monthly ticket through the app that they use in that town. So I'm just wondering if something could be considered here for residents along that line.
It would be something I'd have to take back to the parking team. I know that obviously Advantage card holders get a discount anyway, but it's I think sometimes the issue is from some of the comments I've had from residents, it's not about necessarily buying a ticket, but actually getting a space and finding a space. But yeah, I'm not aware that we currently have such a scheme in Windsor or the borough. But happily we'll take that to the parking team to consider.
And just a further point on that, there is like an ongoing review of our parking strategy, which I know is underway, and I'm now feeding into along with other councillors. I'm also aware that some of our car parks do have kind of like monthly or season ticket type options, I don't know if all of them do, but I know there was definitely one in Eton which does. So it would be worth checking. I think the details are on the website, but certainly good points and noted. Any other, Councillor Carpenter?
Thank you, Paul. Really good presentation. I've just got one comment, and that's that the Dedworth Christmas Fair is on the 24th of November, not 23rd. So
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
we haven't
making
actually.
up that now.
Yeah, I think we're about to advertise it tomorrow. But anyway.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. O'Shea.
Just two quick questions. First point, Paul, is forgive me if I'm wrong, but you were looking at vacancies for, I'm sure it's retail units, and my maths could be wrong here, but there seems to be 6 out, 6 weren't accounted for from total lets and vacant lots. So I was just wondering what those 6 were.
Yeah, so some of those, so yeah, it's not a quick take one and remove it from the other, because what I don't count in that is any units that are under development or have been knocked down. So there is a slight sort of difference in the total. So adding them both together won't necessarily make up, because I sort of discount when I say vacancy. For me, a vacancy is there's a shop there, it's lettable, and potentially if somebody let it, you can walk in. But what I don't count as part of a vacancy is a store that's, we were talking about the cockpit. I wouldn't have that as a vacant unit, because it's completely unusable. So we've got a number of those units in the town, and that sort of comes out of that total.
Thank you. And just since we have the coaches, since we're talking about that, they are around a lot of the town, and they're not in the coach park. The one that we're talking about by the tennis club is there pretty much every other afternoon, and it's not I don't think tourists. I think it's picking up school kids from the swimming pool and that kind of stuff. So there's a regular route that some of these coaches take. If you're looking for additional operations, I think that would certainly be one worth considering, because they're all round Dedworth, some of those coaches.
Yeah. And that's really interesting to know. I hadn't factored in the leisure centre, because they have 2 coach parking bays in front of the centre that schools should be using. But I know it's not the easiest place, because you obviously have to get a coach in, reverse it, and get back out. So it's not the most convenient space to use if you're a coach driver. But it's something we could speak to, because I've done a lot of work with Windsor Castle with regards to their school buses and coaches and how they come in and what they do. And there is a very detailed plan that they have to follow. That might be something we pick up with the leisure centre if they know they've got school groups booked, and it may be that there needs to be some preemptive information given out to those schools or those groups to encourage them to be using the coach park.
It's a timing issue. If you go down in the morning for a lane swim, there'll be 3, 4, 5 schools. Sometimes they're going in on like half-hour, 45-minute rotation. So there's always 2 or 3 schools in there, which means there's always 2 or 3 coaches. So if there's more than 2 coaching bays, one coach park is driving somewhere around Windsor. Right?
Yeah.
That's from, I would say, 9:30, 10 o'clock. They usually start the lessons. They finish at 12. So those 2 hours for a start, and then again in the afternoon, you've got coaches just roaming around town.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions?
Yes.
Yes, gentlemen.
Okay. My name is Martin Barth. I've lived in Windsor since 1978. Very proud to live here. As regards to these coaches, I've noticed in the high street that they're now picking up, putting down passengers, tourists, just outside Windsor Parish Church.
Thank you. Yes, I actually observed that the other day. I think literally about 3 days ago on Park Street as well. I think that's something. Yeah, we'll take that. Paul, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah. No, thank you. You definitely. Yeah, we'll pick that up, and we can pick that up with the parking enforcement team. As I say, the only coaches or buses we permit currently are school educational trips for primary school age children, because we've agreed that.
Thank you. Gentleman in the blue shirt.
John Holland, resident. Paul, how are you getting on persuading the banks to give us a banking hub, please?
Thank you, John, for that. Yes, I have been chasing again. The last communication I had, I think I shared with Councillor TC. So they've come back and talked about that, having reviewed everything. Windsor doesn't look like it's eligible for an additional, a community banking hubs, which we've seen in various places pop up, mainly because we still have Nationwide Bank still operating. So on that basis, they've said that we're not in line or not eligible for that. One of the things they did say is that they were looking to provide more depositing facilities in the town for businesses and others that aren't able to use the cash points that are available in the town centre. I've asked them to tell me when that is going to happen, or because they were under the impression that it had done. And as far as I'm aware, it hasn't been instigated, and there is a team that work with ATM to do that. I have been informed that there is that Barclays are currently going into the Gainsborough House building to do and representing businesses, or businesses can go into Gainsborough, but that's obviously for businesses, not for residents. So I am going to keep pushing. I think we've been very hard done by, particularly when you combine Windsor and Eton, which is, when we presented to them, we presented the whole package really, because Eton has been without bank for some time, way before COVID. And since then we've obviously lost 6 big banks in the high street. So I will keep on them, John, for what it's worth. At the moment, I think I'm sort of like on a losing battle at the moment, but we'll keep pushing. They also said that there was a new paper coming out, I think later on this year, reviewing and putting more formally the arrangements around how community hubs are accredited, or people apply for them, because at the moment I think it's slightly sort of not ad hoc, but I think they're not happy with the fact that there isn't a consistent approach to finding out which towns or cities or villages consistently need that help. So I've got their contact, and I'm sort of contacting them every sort of couple of months.
Thank you, Paul. Okay. Any further questions? Okay, thank you. Thanks very much, Paul. Again, very good.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
So just moving on then to item 8 on the agenda, discussions of issues for future forums. Obviously, there's a collection of items and questions from today. I had a couple of things sort of brought forward, one of which was the Windsor Vision update. And then I think there are a number of things that we've sort of talked about today which would easily fit into that. So I will talk to Chris Joyce about whether the next meeting would be appropriate for that. The other comment I had was rats, which we talked about. So open invitation, any other suggestions for things you'd like to see at either the next or future meetings? The Town Council, yes, sorry, I've got a collection of those. It'll just take me a bit too long to go back, but yes, Town Council certainly. Yes.
A couple of meetings ago, we discussed the desirability of having the aviation forum resurrected. I looked on the meeting schedule and there's no mention of it. So is that still the plan, please?
Aviation forum. There was a meeting held earlier this year.
We did have one meeting to get it going again, and I'll ask the chair, Richard Coe, Councillor Richard Coe, where that's going. The basic premise of it was all the members of the forum, the council members of the forum, would be delegated to attend different meetings at Heathrow, and then bring that knowledge back into the forum to increase it rather than let it be a talking shop. I volunteered for something, but I'm not too sure if there's been any other progress. I can promise you I'll ask him now, see what he says, and I will get it circulated so we find out when the next meeting is. It should be fairly soon. Thank you.
Chair, I can confirm that. I'm trying to confirm a date with Councillor Cove for the next aviation forum, hopefully soon.
Thank you. And I presume details will be published on the RBWM website on the meeting calendar. So yes, okay, thank you. Any further questions? Yes. Yes.
Behind Alma Road, next to skate park, there's I'm not sure if you're aware, you probably are, there's a large derelict area with an underground car park. We've seen a rise in antisocial behaviour and youths sort of climbing over the fence and drinking. Strangely enough, just before we came out to this meeting, there was a 17-year-old girl unconscious from drinking alcohol. They've all snuck into the derelict car park just to drink, and one of them was become unconscious and CPR was given. We're concerned that there's two entry points, one along the basketball court, and I think the second one is along the road. If you're walking, you have to walk through the bollards. It's on the left.
Damaged.
Can
Damaged.
the damage or entry, can that be discussed?
Yes. No, thank you for drawing that to my attention. That I live about 100 yards from that, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I have seen that damaged fence, and clearly that is incredibly concerning to hear of that account. Yeah, no, we'll get on to planning and the developers, but that site clearly needs to be secured immediately. Thank you.
Mr. Webb. This may be for one of the overview and scrutiny panel meetings, but should we bring something to this forum where residents can bring their concerns about the performance of Tivoli yet again? Because some of our pathways are almost impassable because of the growth alongside it.
So, well, absolutely, and this continues to be a problem and is very unsatisfactory from a contract performance point of view. I know that Tivoli were presented to, or were present at the place overview and scrutiny panel relatively recently. I didn't attend that myself, but I think it's good to keep. Yeah, let's see what another step could be.
Mark,
whether that's here or.
Is it possible you can have a look at the contracts before you come to the meeting, because nobody's seen them? But none of the councillors have seen them.
That's not true.
Well, none of the councillors at the overview and scrutiny panel
That's true.
had seen them.
At the overview and scrutiny panel for place, that we didn't discuss the contract, that the Tivoli came to present and gave us a list of what they were going to do to make it better. But we haven't seen much improvement, so the problem still exists. I think that's the issue.
I think we certainly take that away and consider what the best next steps are to get the current issues resolved, because as you say, it is completely unsatisfactory. And certainly I've personally been asking questions since last May and have not got satisfactory answers yet on a number of places.
If I know Jack's here with his brand new portfolio of largeness, but I have a habit of taking my grandchildren for a swim on Mondays at Windsor Leisure Pool. Last week we abandoned it. It was filthy. The pool had debris on the floor of the pool. The water was opaque. You couldn't see through it. There were plasters and bits of detritus all over the changing rooms. It's not the first time it's happened. Other people complain about it. It always used to be a jewel in the crown of Windsor, that leisure centre, but I feel the focus has left the whole thing and switched to Braithwaite now when it's no longer important. It's subcontracted out. People have complained. I use the report it function and complain it and get no kickback and no reply, and that's a common occurrence. I think if we could have an update on that at a future meeting, Chair, I think it'd be quite welcome to everybody.
Yeah, maybe actually just have Leisure Focus come in and sort of talk about how they operate and go into that detail as well. But yeah.
Make sure they know we're going to ask.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Jim.
I'm gonna somehow follow on from that from councillor Knowles there. As some of you have submitted a couple of questions to RBWM with regards to the leisure focus and their practices. I was recently trying to find some information out about if I might be able to get a membership as a carer, and forgive me, but no one really knew very much, either from the councillors or anyone else. But finally, Helen came back with a thing called a timeout card, which is something that RBWM is reportedly promoting, though no one was aware of it during Carers Week. And when I finally got through that process, I went to the information desk and asked if they would help promote that scheme, because obviously very few people were aware of it, including the people at the time, Joshua Reynolds, I think, who was in charge of it. And they basically point blank told me no, and that was both at reception and at the membership. Obviously, they are, I suspect, charging RBWM or Talis and then RBWM less for memberships through things like the timeout card. And even though this is reportedly a non-for-profit business, they obviously do not want to flag to the local community the benefits that the local community should be able to get as a provider of health and leisure care for the local area. The reality of Windsor Leisure Centre is anyone who's lived in Windsor for the similar time as Windsor all got charged by rate to build Windsor Leisure Pool, and the whole point of it was to be a centre of health and excellence for the community. It has since been subcontracted out 4 times, and it is now, pay and take your luck mentality. And the standard in the pools in particular has gone rapidly downhill in the last 5. Well, tell you what, since Spray Week, like you say, has opened up, it has gone remarkably downhill. And they closed the lanes for 3 days last week because there was a problem with the floor. And one assumes that the floor didn't break up overnight, so I imagine it was a problem with the sewage, because that's what often is a problem with the drains. So this is an ongoing problem, and RBWM and Windsor Forum should be really pushing leisure focus for a much clearer understanding of the relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. No, that's a very good point, and I know we've had a discussion on this before, and I'm very concerned that there is the cart before the horse, effectively, in terms of finance versus residents' experience. We need to make sure residents' experiences.
Fundamentally, I was told there's lots of different potential memberships that are available, and I don't know what they are, but I suspect that there are a lot of people across RBWM that are entitled to them. But if RBWM doesn't know about them, and leisure focus either don't know about them or don't promote them, then the people that are being marginalised are the people that most need those memberships, which means that fundamentally it's failing as a part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that really does sound like a good topic for scrutiny. Actually, it's looking like it's a wider issue. And I know sort of from my portfolio brief with children's services, we're working with Leisure Focus to try and provide swimming and things for our children in foster care, another group who are very much deserving of that support. And again, it's taking time to get the response that we require. So I think I would be really interested.
And if they're a community service, then it shouldn't take time to look after the most vulnerable in the community.
Not.
Yeah, that's the reality.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, I have 2 points. One is you walk up High Street, you see the old West Bank, and there are 2 Union Jacks flying from there, and they're absolutely terrible condition. They look like rags. I wrote to the Liberal Democrats on the 29th of March, no action yet. And I wrote to Jack Rankin before he became our MP about it, still no action. So can you do something about those 2 flags? I know of no other country which would accept the condition of flags in that condition.
Paul Roach, town manager, is aware of them and says.
Yeah, but let's have some action, please, right? Okay. And the second point doesn't affect Windsor itself, but we get many tourists coming from Paddington to Slough. They change trains, come into Windsor. And if, as the train from Slough comes under the A4. On the right-hand side, there is Adelphi Gardens, and they're using it as a big rubbish dump. There are mattresses and things like that down the embankment. Now, you can't maybe do anything about it. Can you talk to somebody about it? You agree?
That must be
Yes, absolutely. It's like a rubbish tip. And you're a tourist and you come in, and what impression do you get of UK and Windsor?
I think that probably the first port of call there would be Network Rail, if that's in proximity to the.
I've written to both you guys, Liberals and also Jack Rankin about it. No action at present. Can you do something, please?
So we'll certainly look into it. Thank you.
Just following on from the leisure centre, we've got our lovely shiny new bike store, but I think I've noticed it vandalised twice since it's been installed. It's got broken glass there now again. So it's just a concern on maintenance and how much that costs, who maintains it and what's allocated for the cost to maintain it. So there'll be graffiti before we know it and everything else.
Yes, no, I'm aware that I think a few days ago, I think it was the Thursday, when it was a hot day, a couple of panes of glass broke. It's not clear yet what caused it. So we do need to look at that. There is obviously CCTV there, so hopefully there will be some answers. So it is now accordingly, unfortunately, closed on the basis it's not completely secure. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was actually there this morning and took some photos of the bikes and spoke to the staff of Leisure Focus. Apparently there's nothing on the CCTV to indicate what caused the damage. So it's very concerning. We need to look into it. Yeah, I mean, I think one of them was broken on install, but since then, maybe the same one replaced it's been broken and the second panel's been broken as well. Just can I make a couple of further comments, Chair? So on Leisure Focus generally, I mean, I could look around at Leisure Centre this morning. There's a lot to like about it, I thought, and a lot of issues perhaps as well. You may know that there's a procurement process going on right now. Their contract's up for renewal fairly soon. This is a great time to bring Leisure Focus here or to scrutiny, whichever you choose, and press them as hard as you feel necessary as residents and as councillors. They're maximally incentivised to listen to it at the moment, of course. Yeah, I understand. I can't tell you definitively just yet, but I understand it's an RBWM cycle store rather than a Leisure Focus cycle store, but I can get back to you on that. Yeah. On the Tivoli side, it's well publicised the issues we have with the contract with Tivoli. It's a long-standing contract. It's pretty appalling. We have very little recourse. There are inputs defined, various inputs defined in the contract to do with grasslands, but the mapping to say which parts of which grasses wherever are not there. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm in my area's parks rather than verges, so that would come with a richer responsibility. But in general, the contractor can argue that they are maintaining the standard in the contract because there's no adequate mapping to support the argument that they're not. So, I mean, it's very difficult. Another massive difficulty with the contract, it's a multi-million-pound contract. The penalties, the performance-related sort of penalties built into it are trivial. I think I'm right in saying that the first time ever in the history of the contract we've imposed a penalty, performance-related payment on Tivoli. It is obviously a small amount of leverage, but it's all we've got, and we're committed to maximising the use of that leverage until, again, we have a pending procurement process coming up over the next few years for Tivoli as well.
Thank you, Jack. That's very helpful. Yes, gentleman in the back.
Quite handy to speak from here.
Sorry, if you can come to the microphone, please, for the online.
Good evening, John Bowden, President, Central Windsor. The ANPR is to be installed in William Street, Oxford Road East and Eton Bridge sometime in the future. It's been publicised, but we haven't seen any action at the moment. I hope no one's looking puzzled because I actually saw it on the social media. So it's a very automatic number plate recognition to stop vehicles going into Pescod Street through William Street past the Royal Mail office which they currently do now, including blue badge holders, right? Then do a 360 to park the right way, which is no entry, and also the ones that are coming in from William Street and doing various other actions. And obviously from colleagues I work with in Eton, the Eton Bridge needs some supervision. Are they going to be a mobile set of ANPRs or fixed? And when are they going to be issued? I can cover this question by further request. Can we have the parking manager here? Because he is responsible for those ANPRs, and we've got coach problems, right? And parking problems. So I think it's appropriate that the parking manager arrives, same as what Chris Joyce does, or Miss Roach.
Yes, thank you for your question. So on the ANPR, those 10 locations are now in place and operational. A notice did go out at some point over the last few days. I have seen it from the RBWM website. I think it is on social media. That is relatively recent, but they are active now, and including the locations that you described. In terms of the parking manager, that would certainly be valid, especially in the context of the discussion we've had about coaches. So we'll make a note of that as well.
I'm sorry, just to add that the 10 locations that have been chosen are the ones that were considered to be having the highest level of need. If the problems reduce in those areas, the cameras can be moved to other areas of concern. But obviously they won't be moved around every week or anything. It would be after a significant period.
And the announcement also covers the fact that there was a very short period of a sort of like a run-in where sort of like notice is given as opposed to fines, but that will end fairly quickly.
Only for first offence, I think.
Yes. Right, conscious of time, let me draw the meeting to a close there. Thank you very much for all your inputs. The next meeting is the 18th of September. And thank you very much.